All right, hi, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Some Soothings. This is season 2, episode number 3. My name is Joshua. I am a musician, glitch, and sound artist, and our show is a 30-minute weekly live stream in which I'll share and discuss art and poetry and music and history. It'll be earnest, there'll be a few jokes, there'll be some live improvised music. This is an outlet. It's a place for me to work out ideas and hopefully connect a little bit with you all, asynchronously, screen mediated, but connection nonetheless, I think. We'll endeavor to be really peaceful, really vulnerable, as calming as we can be. But we are taking a really broad definition of the word soothing, and we will not be ignoring any of the seriousnesses or complexities of our contemporary moment. So, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Some quick housekeeping. The stability of the IG Live platform is kind of a mess. We've been really fighting with it. So we're keeping our fingers crossed for tonight's show. But I'm recording and archiving these episodes, and so I'll try to get it up as quickly as possible in case, there's hiccups in the stream or what have you. Regardless, I apologize if technology fails us. Modernity is a bummer. If you want to learn more about anything that we are talking about tonight, there is a pinned comment. Is it pinned? Oh, it's pinned. That part worked. Great. That has information about, links to my research and more information about anything that we're talking about this evening. I can't really see the comments as we're going here. I can sort of tell when the heart gets mashed, but other than that, I can't really clock what's going on and do the show at the same time. So I'm recording the comments, and I will check them out later on tonight when I'm drinking my nightly glass of cactus juice. And any questions or commentary or critique, I will try to address at the top of next week's show. All right. We seem to be pretty stable. This is working all right. Okay, let's. I shouldn't have said that. I'm knocking on wood now. This is wood. Let's get the show going. Let's look at some art. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at the work of Ayana Jackson. Jackson was born in New Jersey in 1977 and currently splits time between Johannesburg, New York, and Paris. Jackson studied sociology and photography at Spelman College and then continued their training in large format photography at the Berlin University of the Arts. Jackson's shown work at the Studio Museum, at the Museum of Contemporary Photography, at the Detroit Institute of Art, at the Smithsonian, at Princeton. This work is from a 2019 show called Take Me to the Water. The upper image is called The Rupture Was the Story, the middle image is called Consider the Sky and the Sea, and the bottom is called Sighting in the Abyss No. 2. And I should note that though this work is, it was part of the same show and is part of the same series, it wasn't presented as a triptych like this. That was just the best way that I could figure out how to share, in this vertical format, share multiple images with you all. So it's all of a whole, but it's not displayed as a triptych as it's appearing on your screens right now. So this show, Take Me to the Water, is a series of photographs in which Jackson embodies, expresses, I haven't figured out what word to use for this yet, performs, depicts, evokes maybe, mythological and folkloric creatures from the African diaspora. And just as a quick aside, Google image search for folkloric creatures of the African diaspora is a trove of pleasures. Please, when you have some free time, do that search. And it led me to a blog called The Book of Creatures. It's this enormous archive that's been highlighting 2 mythological creatures a week for at least 5 years. I kept scrolling and scrolling and did not get to the bottom. So there are many magic beings on that blog. So our info doc has a link to it. Definitely check that out. Okay, so back to Jackson. These are self-portraits, which is very cool. Jackson is both the photographer and the subject of the work. And from what I understand, also is the art director, costumer, set designer. So Jackson collaborated to make these suits, these costumes, these dresses. Jackson states that the work is intended to evoke water deities, particularly of the African diaspora, like Olokan, which is the Yoruba ruler of the seas, or Mami Kumba Bang, who's the Senegalese goddess of the rivers, or Yamoja, who is this like mermaid moon spirit, and Mami Wata, who is this like water snake charmer fertility spirit. I think sometimes it's helpful to like really clock a word and then just sort of hold it for a moment. So the African diaspora. The African diaspora is the borderless expanse of ideas, music, art, stories, language, cuisines, cultures, persons, and communities of African descent dispersed throughout the world, a dispersal often originating from the violent removal, exile, and displacement from the transatlantic slave trade and colonization. So there's just a lot of history and wisdom and celebration and trauma and grief and art and love and endurance packed into these brief 7 syllables of African diaspora. And all of that is kind of cooked into the work here. So let's talk about the work a little more specifically for a moment. I feel like Jackson is just like a really deft like integrator or like harmonizer or amalgamator. There's just like a ton of stuff going on here. There's obviously self, right? There's portrait, there's self-portrait, there's art history and like the kind of art historical context in its relationship to portrait. There's autobiography, there's like photography, there's film photography and blackness specifically, there's folklore, there's the African diaspora, there's water, there's these found objects. I don't know if you can see this, but the dress on the top is made of like cast off flip-flops. So there's this found object aspect to all of this. And there's like beauty and I think the erotic and mystery and maybe danger, and there's just like a ton of negative space and feminine power. There's just like a lot of stuff going on in this work. But it holds all these complexities, I feel like, with real ease. The work's not bogged down by its depth, by its expanse. And I think importantly also, the work operates on this level of just being like wildly beautiful. These are just stunning, stunning photographs. And so that's a thing too. Okay. One more thing. Anytime I'm like at a party and I'm like cornered by someone I wish I wasn't, they'll like inevitably, smirkingly use this quote, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." And if I'm really lucky, they'll attribute it to Andy Warhol. And whenever that happens, I just immediately pull my phone out and I pretend to read a text, and then I'll say, "Good chatting with you, but my mom's here to pick me up, I gotta go." And then I leave. Because anytime I hear that quote, I just sort of have to go. I only have 2 eyes. They only roll one, they only roll like that, and that's just not enough for that quote. That being said, growing things need soil and sunlight and water. I don't like have any specific knowledge, and nor do I mean to suggest like any direct influence on Jackson's work, but I do think a creative practice often exists like in a solar system, and solar systems are like orbits and interactions of gravity, and so I want to do just like a really quick flyby on 3 planets, and this is like a really pretty sloppy analysis, but hopefully it just like gives you all a little fuel for your thinking caps. So flyby planet number 1 is Cindy Sherman, in performance and persona in self-portrait. So Sherman is entering, this is so wild, the 5th decade of a praxis of work in which they like dress up or personify or insert themselves in the role of traditional feminine stereotypes, or like archetypes, and then they photograph themselves. I think in part to call attention to the misogyny inherent in these archetypes. But so planet number 1 is Sherman adopting personas and being both the subject and the author of these images. Planet number 2, Kehinde Wiley, and centering blackness in referential art historical portraiture. So Wiley often makes work that directly evokes famous portraits of the 18th and 19th century. But, as you can see here, clearly substituting a modern black figure into the work. I think I'll probably do like a full feature on Wiley at some point. Their work is just really special. But briefly, from a process standpoint, Wiley wanders around cities until someone catches their eye, and then they invite that person back to their studio, and Wiley and the person like page through art history books and together select a classic portrait. And then Wiley paints an evocation of that portrait with this person that they brought back to their studio as the subject. It's just such a lovely and interesting and then in relation to the Jackson work, you know, centering blackness in this art historical tradition of portraiture. Okay, and then lastly, Nick Cave and wearables and totemic like cast off or found object. So the term wearable art feels like a little goofy until that moment in which you need it. What do we call an object that's like not a costume, and it's not really sculpture, and it's not really fashion per se? And so, I hear this kind of work referred to as wearables. So multidisciplinary artist Nick Cave, since like the early 90s, has been using found objects, so cast-offs, detritus, to create wearables that I think, at least for me, very strongly evoke like traditional ceremonial garment of African ritual and African sculpture. And so this relationship between cast off and the African diaspora going on in Nick Cave's work, and I think similarly in Jackson's work. And so yeah, I'm not like really that curious or not that compelled to like tease out super specific influences just in general in art criticism and in art understanding, but I do admire constellations, and I think that Jackson's work like shares a quadrant in the celestial with these other folks. So yeah, Ayana Jackson doing profound and beautiful stuff. For more info, check out our info doc. Alright, so up next on the show we have Radical History Snacks, which is a segment in which we feature either cool old food or highlight moments in the progressive people's history. So gang, I made a profound error in judgment when I designed this segment. I thought I was being like really cute and clever with this like old-timey food and radical history thing. But it turns out that our ancestors, humans in the past, mostly ate rotten, terrifying, disgusting, blood-drenched literal trash. So researching this segment has been wildly unpleasant, and I don't think I'm going to keep up the food bit of this. But I thought I would give it one go, and today I'm going to share a little bit of information about vinegar pie. Which maybe doesn't taste amazing, but at least the ingredients list does not like include congealed like beaver tail. So what is vinegar pie? Vinegar pie is a very simple dessert originating in the mid-1800s. It's like a custard-style pie. It's flavored with apple cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar in place of like lemon or apples or berries. This is like a frontier recipe born of hard times and scarcity, and it's part of a category of remarkably named desserts called desperation pies, which is obviously going to become a part of my day-to-day vocabulary. So desperation pies, or they're otherwise known as make-do pies, buttermilk pie, chess pie, shoe fly pie, and basically it's like you make it with whatever's kind of like left over in your pantry when you can't get any more fresh ingredients. So it's like a midwinter or late winter kind of confection. And it's simple. Flour, sugar, some kind of shortening, and vinegar. And you whisk that, you warm it up into like a custardy filling, and then you pour that into your crust, bake it, and then refrigerate it. So vinegar pie. I have linked to a recipe in the info doc. I have not tasted nor made vinegar pie. I don't have a working oven. My oven here in the sublet doesn't work, so I actually couldn't make it. I considered ways to possibly do it, but then I let that all go. But if someone does make it, please take a pic and DM me. I am deeply curious I'm deeply curious to learn like what desperation pies are being made by the folks out in Some Soothings lands. So that's today's Radical History Snacks. Up next, we have our Some Soothing special feature. Today we have a very exciting special feature. Today's bit is called Admiring Confections to a Sweet Horn Section. So here we go. All right, so that looked pretty delicious. That was probably vinegar pie, is my guess. So each week on Some Soothings, we take a brief look at organizations or an organizer that's doing work that we admire, and I will have researched and donated to this org already. And so in sharing it with y'all, I'm sort of encouraging you to donate as well. Link in the pinned comment below. Today we are looking at the Heal Food Alliance. Heal Food Alliance is a multi-sector, multiracial coalition transforming our food and farm systems by applying the expertise of frontline communities who are most burdened by the disparities of the current system. I like to let orgs kind of say what they do in their own words, so let me just read a bit from HEAL's website. Quote, "We believe that all people and all communities should have the right and means to produce, procure, prepare, share, and eat food that's nutritionally and culturally appropriate, free from exploitation of themselves and of other people. Food and farm systems should be healthy, accessible, and affordable for all communities and fair to the people who grow, distribute, prepare, and serve that food, while protecting the air, water, and land we all depend on." HEAL works to turn this vision into reality through cross-community organizing, advocating for policy solutions, and holding powerful food systems actors accountable for their actions. So, end quote. So that all seems very cool, right? HEAL's doing a range of work kind of around food justice, but personally I'm really interested in their participation in the implementation of the Good Food Purchasing Program, and so this is like a framework that they've helped design that provides accountability in food purchasing for big public institutions like universities or public schools, for example. So the idea is to help these big institutions direct their buying power with an eye towards local economies, environmental sustainability, fair trade, nutrition, and animal welfare. And so, right now they're in process of working with the New York Public Schools, for example. In New York Public Schools, this is unbelievable to me. New York Public Schools provides 900,000 meals a day to underserved students. So that's obviously like so beautiful and so cool, and yet another reason that I just really admire how the city of New York runs. And it's that's so important for at-risk communities. But then imagine what that all looks like if there's a system underpinning it that has a deep food justice mindset and framework kind of baked into all of it. There's just so much power in that. So that's the work that HEAL's doing, trying to create those kind of infrastructures. So yeah, Heal Food Alliance, doing really cool work. More information in the pinned comment below. Alright gang, let's play a little music. How are we doing for time? Oh great. We have maybe we can do 5 or 6 minutes of some music. So I'm gonna push a couple buttons and play some stuff for you. Thanks for listening. Alright, gang, thanks for listening. Let's close with a poem. Today I'm going to be reading a poem by Lucille Clifton. Clifton was born in Buffalo, New York in 1936 and crossed the veil again in 2010. Clifton was an educator, a poet, notably was, discovered's not the right word, was encouraged in their craft by none other than Langston Hughes, so there is some really rich provenance there. And this poem, well, I'm just going to read it. This is called Telling Our Stories. Telling Our Stories by Lucille Clifton. The fox came every evening to my door asking for nothing. My fear trapped me inside, hoping to dismiss her, but she sat waiting till morning. At dawn we would, each of us, rise from our haunches, look through the glass, and then walk away. Did she gather her village around her and sing of the hairless moon face, that trembling snout, those ignorant eyes? Child, I tell you now, it was not the animal blood I was hiding from. It was the poet in her. The poet and the terrible stories she could tell. Alright, buddies, I appreciate you all tuning in tonight. I hope that you have a really lovely week. Take very good care of yourselves. Take very good care of each other. Good night.